This week, we'll focus on one particular nation that has shown strength and resilience in exceptionally difficult times. It fought through and beat the odds of an economic disaster during the COVID-19 pandemic and fought the disease with strength and without any assistance or help or even recognition from the World Health Organization. Yes, Taiwan has emerged as the real challenge to autocratic forces, not by display of aggression, but through the might of knowledge and technology. Here's a report.
A force to reckon with, a leading nation in the technology industry. Taiwan has become one of the most sought-after countries for collaboration and is giving many others sleepless nights. Taiwan became Asia's top-performing economy last year. Taiwan's growth as a service industry has made it one of Asia's biggest high-end manufacturing, high-tech, R&D and advanced semiconductor processing destination. Top of the list is Taiwan's semiconductor chip industry. When COVID-19 forced the world to lock down last year, the country did not hit a standstill. Smartphones kept us connected, data servers kept the information flowing, laptops and computers let us work or study from home. But that created new problems, shortage in supply. The chip industry is as global and complex as the chip itself. The industry that was worth about $440 billion in 2020, as per research from Statista, is on its way to crossing $600 billion this year. So while this tiny nation prepares itself to fight for survival against continued Chinese aggression, it still managed to create a stranglehold in the most secure future stock. The TSMC has taken a lead on this.
Taiwan is a barren rock in a typhoon-laden sea, and yet it has the richest leading-edge microchip company in the world. Across the Straits of Taiwan is a country of 1.4 billion people. They have been trying to lead the microchip industry to make logic chips better than anyone in the world, and they can't do it, okay? They can't do it. They've spent billions of dollars, but across the Straits of Taiwan is this barren rock in a typhoon-laden sea, and they've figured it out.
One of the 10 largest countries in terms of market cap in the world, Taiwan is at the epicenter of global tech race. While the world fought COVID, they also came to realize the importance of a resilient supply chain where economies do not get compromised because of the bad behavior of one critical supplier, China. Over the past 6 decades, through well-tailored economic development strategies, Taiwan achieved a remarkable record of rapid economic growth with stable prices and equitable income distribution, known as Taiwan Experience. Taiwan successfully transformed from an agricultural society to a global manufacturing powerhouse and an irreplaceable peg in the high-tech supply chain order.
The government made a strategic decision to enter the computer-related supply chain because at that time, the computer industry was booming.
It is so strong on the tech front that despite the differences, even Beijing cannot avoid doing business with Taipei. Taiwan is the world's 15th largest exporter and 18th largest importer of merchandise. As the global supply chain is reprogramming in the post-pandemic era, Taiwan has responded by accelerating the transformation and upgrade of its industries and is repositioning the core competitive advantages of its economy to collaborate with countries across the world and bring the ecosystem into Taiwan. Trust is Taiwan's most valuable currency, but scale will be a challenge. Therefore, the need to collaborate with countries that have stood with Taipei through the test of time. India.
Increased trade ties between New Delhi and Taipei will only give a major fillip to India's tech industry. On Spotlight this weekend, I speak with Taiwan's envoy to New Delhi, Ambassador Boshwan Ge, on the very same issue and the need for a free trade agreement. Listen in. For any two countries to really move forward, economic cooperation is essential. How are Taiwan and India looking at economic cooperation and moving forward in the global sphere as two economic leaders? To discuss this, I'm being joined by Taiwan's envoy to India, Ambassador Boshwan Ge. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today. In terms of India-Taiwan economic cooperation, how do you see the forward movement when it comes to trade agreements or trade cooperation?
India is an important partner in Taiwan's new southbound policy. Both of our two countries have very solid trade relations. During the first 10 months this year, the bilateral trade between our two sides reached $6.34 billion. The total volume of our bilateral trade in 2021 will reach a historic new high. More than 120 Taiwanese companies have invested in India with a total value of $2.3 billion. Through investments, Taiwanese companies have shown their interest in operations in India to harness benefits of incentive policies of the government of India and India's huge market. Our two economies are complementary in nature, but the current bilateral trade arrangements are not enough for the new Taiwan-India economic relations in the post-pandemic era. We need more joint efforts by the two governments so as to facilitate supply chain relocation. In this context, a bilateral trade arrangement and the upgraded bilateral investment agreement are both in urgent need. The sooner we sign such agreements, the sooner we see a huge leap in our trade and investment.
In the post-pandemic period, we saw that it was not India or any other country that really became that alternative. It was Taiwan. How do you then see Taiwan becoming that alternative in the global supply chain and the Taiwan-India cooperation in ensuring that in the global supply chain that these two countries become the alternative?
Over the past 6 decades, thanks to the joint efforts of the people and government, as well as well-tailored economic strategies, Taiwan has achieved a remarkable record of rapid economic growth with stable prices and equitable income distribution. This has come to be known as Taiwan Experience. Taiwan is the world's 15th largest exporter and 18th largest importer of merchandise. Its trade volume reached $631 billion in 2020. Powered by an ongoing global economic recovery and solid demand for high-tech gadgets, till last October, we can see Taiwan's exports rose consecutively for 16 months. Taiwan's exports in 2020 will surpass $400 billion. It will be the first time in our history. Taiwan has officially applied for this comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. This not only represents an important process for Taiwan's external trade, but also marks a major step forward in Taiwan's ambition for further participating in regional economic integration since we joined the World Trade Organization in 2001.
Afghanistan remains in focus for the Taliban's continued and now ingenious methods of oppression. In its latest diktat, the Taliban have ordered shops to behead female mannequins on display. Yes, not remove the mannequins, but behead them, which means it is a clear message to the young girls and women of the country that they do not belong, and should they defy rules, this could be their fate. Here's a report.
The female mannequins that dot shopping malls of Afghanistan's cultural capital are un-Islamic. That is what the Taliban regime has declared and ordered that the heads be removed. That these lifeless dolls be beheaded to send a message to the living. Shopkeepers in the western province of Herat in Afghanistan have been told by Afghanistan's Ministry for Propagation of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice to chop the heads off their mannequins after officials ruled the dummies were sinful idols. The gender purge had begun since the Taliban takeover. It started with posters of women defaced with spray paint. Afghan women have faced a savage crackdown on their freedoms and education since the Taliban swept into power earlier this year. Brutal, oppressive, and sexist laws enacted by the group in the 90s are being rolled back into place, when they forbade women from working or attending schools. Women had to cover their faces and were punished if they did not do so. They were also barred from leaving their homes unless they were accompanied by a male relative. It is the return to the Dark Ages, and the international community is nothing but a mute spectator.
Coming up after a short break here on World Today, COVID cases on the rise across the globe with variants and mutations. How are countries handling the situation on the ground? Details on the other side. Welcome back to World Today. Now, COVID-19 cases are skyrocketing globally, propelled by the new Omicron variant. The United States of America set a new global record with 1 million cases recorded in a single day on the 3rd of Jan. Europe also is facing a surge, with France recording 200,000 cases in 5 consecutive days and the United Kingdom recording 200,000 cases in one single day. Leaders, including UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, are now urging their citizens to get vaccinated and get their booster doses, this amid a major global debate over vaccine equity. Here's a report.
A whopping 10 lakh plus new COVID-19 cases registered in a single day in the United States. Record rise in the COVID-19 cases fueled by Omicron variant in the United Kingdom. Anti-lockdown protest amid 35% rise in COVID-19 cases in the Netherlands. Over 200,000 plus COVID-19 cases for 4 consecutive days in France. And a new COVID-19 variant with 46 mutations detected. In the United States, more than 103,000 people are currently hospitalized with COVID-19. The Omicron strain accounts for 95% of new infections in the US, as stated by the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention.
And the virus does seem to have a lower intrinsic pathogenicity to it. We're hoping that's the case. But having said that, George, I want to say one thing. We've got to be careful about that. Because even if you have a less of a percentage of severity, when you have multifold more people getting infected, the net amount is you're still going to get a lot of people that are going to be needing hospitalization. And that's the reason why we're concerned about stressing and straining the hospital system.
In the United Kingdom, over 200,000 new COVID-19 cases were recorded on January 4th. A first ever since the beginning of the pandemic.
I think the way forward for the country as a whole is to continue with the path that we're on. So number one, continue with plan B, make sure that people take it seriously, do what we can to stop the spread, use the plan B measures, work from home if you can, wear a mask on public transport, be sensible about take a test before going out to meet people you don't normally meet, think about the requirements under plan B, but also get the booster.
Across the English Channel, in France, over 270,000 new COVID-19 infections were recorded on January 4th. France is now Europe's hardest hit country by the Omicron variant, recording over 200,000 cases for 4 consecutive days.
peut-être, encore une fois, tout est dans le peut-être.
Maybe this will be the last wave of infection. Given the rate of contamination, we all seem to have obtained a form of immunity. Now, with the vaccination rate reaching to 100%, more than 50% of population would have immunity.
Vaccination, quasiment du 100% en réalité.
In the capital of the Netherlands, riot police with batons and shields broke up a crowd of several thousands protesting against lockdown measures and vaccinations. At least 30 people were detained after scuffles and 4 officers were injured. Public gatherings of more than 2 people are prohibited under restrictions imposed by the government. The country went into a sudden lockdown on December 19th, which will continue till at least January 14th. In total, more than 113,000 positive cases of COVID-19 were reported in the week, a 35% rise in cases from the last week. With the COVID-19 pandemic entering the third year, reports regarding the Omicron variant suggest it will be milder than the previous strains. Experts, however, have all stressed the need to exercise caution to deal with the variant.
Once hailed as the Silicon Valley icon, Elizabeth Holmes has now been charged in 4 out of 11 counts of fraud and conspiracy. Here's a detailed report on the rise and fall of the Theranos CEO. Take a look.
Elizabeth Holmes, once celebrated as the female Steve Jobs, leaving US federal court as a convicted felon, clutching the hands of her parents and husband. A Stanford University dropout, Holmes, inspired by her own fear of needles, started Theranos at the age of 19 with a mission to create a cheaper and more efficient alternative to traditional blood tests. A little amount of blood taken in nanotainer tubes would be analyzed on a portable analysis machine named Edison at Theranos lab. The device was designed to be able to detect hundreds of diseases from HIV to cancer with just a drop of blood. This was being called the big breakthrough in the field of medical sciences. However, Theranos blood testing tech kept producing misleading results, forcing the company to secretly rely on conventional machines in a traditional blood testing facility. But that did not stop Holmes from enticing the investors to pour in millions of dollars into the startup. In 2015, Forbes put Holmes at the top of its list of America's richest self-made women with a net worth of $4.5 billion. Holmes raised more than $900 million from a long list of elite investors like media mogul Rupert Murdoch, Donald Trump's Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, and several other high-profile officials. Theranos collapsed after the Wall Street Journal published a series of articles alleging that its devices were inaccurate. In 2018, Holmes was charged alongside Theranos' former COO Ramesh Sunny Balwani, who was also her romantic partner. Holmes faces up to 20 years in prison as well as a fine of $250,000 plus restitution for each count.
Do you have anything to say?
And here are some other stories doing the rounds from across the globe in World at a Glance.
World number 1 player Novak Djokovic has been denied entry to Australia over an issue with his visa. His team had not requested a visa that permits medical exemption for being unvaccinated. The tennis star had been quizzed in a room at Melbourne Airport for hours. Djokovic was due to play in the Australian Open after being exempted from vaccination rules. He has been told that he will be deported, but his lawyers said they will challenge the decision. Prince Andrew's lawyers will argue in court to dismiss the civil case brought against Prince, alleging that he sexually assaulted Virginia Giuffre when she was a teenager. A document made public showed that Giuffre was paid $500,000 in 2009 by the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein to end her claim against him. As a part of settlement, she also agreed not to sue anyone connected to Absentine who could be described as a potential defendant. Prince's lawyer said this deal prevents Giuffre from suing Prince Andrew. Donald Trump and his two eldest children, Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump, moved to squash subpoenas for their testimony in a civil investigation. New York Attorney General Letitia James has subpoenaed Trump's as a part of civil investigation into whether the Trump Organization manipulated the values of its properties. Billionaire Elon Musk-led Tesla has been criticized in the US after opening a showroom in China's controversial Xinjiang region, where China has been accused of slavery and genocide against the Uyghur minority group. The company opened the showroom in the city of Urumqi on the New Year's Eve.
That's all in this edition of World Today. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to India Today for all the latest news and developments.